Ernest Hello was a French Catholic writer. Born in 1828 in Tréguier in Brittany, he studied law at the Lycée Louis le Grand. In 1857 he married writer Zoe Berthier, who would later become his collaborator, and in 1859 he founded the Le Croix newspaper, which only existed for 2 years. He was apparently instrumental in the conversion of ungrateful beggar Léon Bloy to Catholicism. He suffered from a frail condition possibly related to the spine or bone structure, dying in 1885 at Lorient. His 1879 Contes Extraordinaires was, as far as I know, never translated into English, which is a shame considering the quality and outright weirdness of most of the stories. Louise is the story of a greedy man from an affluent family who proceeds to sadistically drag his wife Amalia and his daughter Anna into abject poverty simply so he can save as much money as possible. He hides all of his money in a safe whose password is God, the passport he ironically soon forgets, and is unable to get to his money, praying to God absent-mindedly without realizing the forgotten passport is in fact the name of God. Finally, in his desperation, he attempts to rob his wife and daughter of their faithful dog, the very last thing they have in the world, and the dog kills him as a result. Two Strangers is a story of a man who refuses to work or do anything of any sort as a direct result of his having met with a fantastic man many years ago. Once he is called for to go and assist this very man in his hour of need, however, the story stumbles and becomes little more than pages upon pages of philosophical disputations. A simple occurrence, meanwhile, is a short story of the eventual marriage of Exoline and Adrian, but there isn't much else here aside from slight moralizing. The double household begins with the marriage of Marie to Yves, and the marriage of her cousin Blanche to Yves's brother Louis. However, Blanche's mother tries to estrange Blanche from her husband using the help of a mysterious hermit who possesses an even more mysterious box with the ability to magically conjure up money. Then one day Blanche, her mother, and the hermit Bertham disappear, only for Blanche to be found sometime later in the mountains, having lost her reason, and only regains it shortly before the burned corpses of her mother and of Bertham are discovered in the mountains where they went to try and find the lost magic box. Julian is a somewhat confusing story of a man who, following the death of his father, loses his faith in God. Upon returning home, they found his personality incredibly altered, to the point where he is confronted not only by this, but also concerning the weird and unsettling gloves that he continuously keeps wearing over his hands and which he refuses to take off. His stepsister implores him to seek mercy with God, but upon her uttering the big G word, Julian suddenly starts bleeding and is then found by his neighbours as only a charred corpse. The Nighttime Washer is a ghost story. It concerns a woman called the Mother of Money who gives out 10 times the amount of money one borrows to her until one day the money runs out and she gets herself killed. Whereupon she was seen as a ghost washing her money with her blood, and the story then proceeds to narrate just what happens when she needs more blood to wash her money with and happens to run out. A disclosed secret is the tragic story of the inmate of an insane asylum narrated to a visitor. A Brave Man is the story of a murderer pursued by the spirit of his victim, or rather his fixed idea of the spirit of his victim, which is only in his head, which every night keeps whispering in his ears that a murderer has not long to live. The Memoirs of a Bat is a fable-like story of a bat who mistakes a play he sees on stage for real life and thinks real life is only a play. Cain, What Has Thy Brother Done to Thee is the story of a nobleman's madness, thinking he is pursued by a dead man, as is so often the case in the tales of Ernest Hello. Eve and Marie is a tale of 2 sisters, one wedding a nobleman in the Red Mountains and then being pursued by a horrid fiend, and another who loves nature and returns to it once she is permitted to do so. The Judge's Gaze is a bizarre story of a confused kingdom, or rather queendom, in some distant land, wherein the hereditary rule of the land shall be inherited when a long-locked room mysteriously opens, mystically revealing the name and portrait of the chosen one, while making her rival for the queenship swallowed up underground, forced to work in an underground smithy, and if only a single drop of her sweat ever manages to come back back onto Earth, the entire kingdom will be turned into a desolate and lifeless wasteland. I have no idea what this is about. Three Kings Pie, meanwhile, narrates the terrible consequences that befell a family who had turned a beggar away from their home. He Searched is the tale of a great and mighty king from Asia trying to find the real name of God and ironically being kept from the revelation by his status for the entirety of his life. Finally, The Sorrows of Helen is the story of a woman tormented by remorse and guilt because she knows an innocent person who did not commit a crime will die soon while her own brother was one of the actual offenders. I only have a 1920 translation in Czech at hand, but to those lucky enough to understand French, the book is readily available online. It is a collection of grim, melancholy, mystical stories with weird, fantastical happenings, and sometimes, though it may be confusing, it is nevertheless a very enthralling read.